Ravens fans, we trudged through the ice and the snow, but we are back in studio. We got a great show coming up for each and every one of you guys. First off, a little bit of an unfortunate note. A Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator target is officially off the board. I'll tell you who that is at the top of today's show. Then after that, Minter has continued to add to the Baltimore Ravens coaching staff. This time, another addition on the offensive side. Speaking of the offensive side, a former Ravens coach will be joining Todd Monken in Cleveland. Lots to discuss. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with us. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys who have already gotten a little bit of our Ravens rundown swag with our Minter is Coming t-shirts and hoodies. Chatsports.com/Minter. That's where you can get one for yourself. We've got the hoodies. We've got the t-shirts. We also have an awesome deal that if you get both, you can save $10. It's our first ever merch. It's not the last, but it's the first, so it's the most special. If you have not got it yet, these things are flying off shelves. Get it soon. And with that, we'll start with today's show. Jeremy Fowler is the one that broke the news earlier today. The Browns notified Rams assistant Nate Scheelhaase this morning that they were going in a different direction. He plans to stay with the Rams and be a factor next cycle. So Nate Scheelhaase is officially off the board for the Baltimore Ravens. This was a guy who was one of the only offensive coordinator targets that they had already interviewed because they interviewed him for a head coaching position. But remember, when this all started, it was being discussed as, look, a lot of these guys, they're being interviewed as head coaches, but in reality, they kind of knew where they were going to go with Jesse Minter. A lot of these guys they just brought in, like a Scheelhaase or like a Webb, because they thought, you know what, maybe if you get a defensive guy like Minter, you can hire one of these guys as the offensive coordinator. They wanted to familiarize themselves with him. They talked to Scheelhaase. This was a guy that, after Minter got hired, was tossed around as a possibility. Unfortunately, he is not a possibility anymore. And I'll be honest with you, I was really, really open to Nate Scheelhaase. I was very, very impressed with what he'd been able to do in Los Angeles. Sean McVay only says wonderful things about him. He got to learn under one of the greatest offensive minds in the game in Sean McVay. And of all the young guys we've talked about, Scheelhaase was my number one over Declan Doyle. Definitely over Davis Webb, because what he brings, especially over Webb, is a wealth of experience in the National Football League, right? Davis Webb has only been coaching for 3 seasons. Nate Scheelhaase has been doing that for longer in the NFL. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you he's got just this wealth of experience and he's this veteran among the National Football League, because he's not that. He's still young. But in that, he's got to learn from Sean McVay. And I really do believe a Sean McVay-type offense here in Baltimore would be really, really exciting. I think it could bring out the best in Lamar Jackson. I think it could bring out the best in Derrick Henry, and I would have been open to it. Again, I do have my concerns also. Hiring an offensive coordinator for a first-time head coach that's never called plays before, offensively, being Nate Scheelhaase. But you don't have to worry about that with him anymore. Of course, you're still kind of sitting here. It's Wednesday afternoon. It's Wednesday evening. You don't really know where you're going with the offensive coordinator. More on that throughout the week. Who do you guys think the Ravens should hire at OC? Let me know down below in the chat, okay? Act as if you're Jesse Minter. Act as if you're Eric DeCosta, and go ahead and make the hire for me down below. Speaking of making hires, Jeff Zrebiec let us know earlier this morning the Ravens also finalized a deal with offensive line coach Dwayne Ledford. We talked about that yesterday. Also joining Ledford, this is the big part, on Minter's staff will be assistant offensive line coach Shawn Flaherty, who was with Atlanta last year with Dwayne Ledford as well. And look, I'm loving this hire from Jesse Minter, because you look at last year and the offensive line, what they did in the run game, what they did in pass protection, it was not good enough. Plain and simple. In fact, if you did not have Derrick Henry, if you just had an average NFL running back, if you did not have Lamar Jackson, if you just had an average NFL quarterback, this offense would have been even worse than it was, solely because of the play of the offensive line. So you knew it had to take a step up. And when you hired Dwayne to be the OL coach, I think it's a big, big, big positive that he gets to bring Flaherty with him to be his assistant, because they've been together recently, like we said in Atlanta. Flaherty's last couple of years, he was in Miami from 2019 to 2021 as a coaching assistant offensive line coach. Then he came to Atlanta in 2022 just as a football analyst. And then for the last 3 seasons, he was the assistant offensive line coach. It's going to be the exact same title, exact same responsibilities for him here in Baltimore. And these two had a ton of success together, Ledford and Flaherty in Atlanta. It helps a lot that they had Bijan Robinson, but what they were able to do after having 2 starting offensive linemen go down this past season, still be one of the league leaders in rushing, the way they zone or they scheme their runs up. They love a wide zone, which I think is going to suit Derrick Henry really, really well. Like, there's a lot of things I love about the additions of these two. You still got to make a lot more additions, though. Like, if you look at the offensive coaching hires, you got a lot left. Offensive coordinator, quarterback, running back, wide receivers, tight ends. Now, all of that will come into place after you get your OC in the building. But Dwayne Ledford and now Flaherty are the only two you've got on the offensive side of the ball. And when it comes to the defensive side of the ball, you just have your defensive coordinator, defensive line, and linebackers coach left. Because you got your defensive back coach in Mike Mickens. Now, same as the offensive side of the ball, when you get that coordinator, when you get your DC, the others are going to fill themselves out pretty quickly. But that's just kind of what you're waiting on. And because of that, I'm hoping for a little bit of movement soon, if I'm being honest with you. It's been 6 days since Jesse Minter got hired, and he's hired 2 coaches, 1 assistant. I'm ready to know who the OC is going to be. Now, again, his options are dwindling down as the time continues to march on. Joe Brady was an option yesterday morning. He wasn't an option by the afternoon. Nate Scheelhaase was an option early this morning. He wasn't an option by about 10 a.m. So really all you got left is Davis Webb, Declan Doyle, and still maybe Cliff Kingsbury. We talked about it already, but George Warhop is joining, actually not the Giants. Did I say Giants off the beginning? I think I did. George Warhop is joining Todd Monken and the Cleveland Browns to be their next offensive line coach. Honestly, thankful for all Warhop has done in Baltimore, but to me, it's good riddance because this offensive line group just flat out was not very talented, and they were a big, big, big weakness of this team in 2025. Coming up, let's take a trip around the AFC North. Get you caught up with everything that's going on because it has been quite the day in Cleveland, Ohio. But real quick, I do got to tell you about our awesome sponsor of today's show, our great friends over at PrizePicks. And the big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than PrizePicks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. So close the season out right with PrizePicks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Are you missing your fantasy team? My league's already over, but with PrizePicks, I don't have to wait until next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. PrizePicks lets you play fantasy football every single week, even in the playoffs. Join millions of users and sign up for America's #1 sports picks app. Here is my 3-pick power play for the big game. I'm going to take the more on Cooper Kupp, 31.5 receiving yards. I'm going to take the less on Jackson Smith and Jigba, 93.5 receiving yards. I just think they're going to throw Christian Gonzalez on them, and their defensive game plan is going to be do not let JSN hurt us. And then I'm going to take the less on Ramondre Stevenson for 50.5 rushing yards. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Link to this promo is in the comments and description of today's video. Again, that's code CLNS. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. All right, around the AFC North, let's do it. Browns. It has been an absolute disaster of a day. If you have stayed off social media, then you've basically missed everything. So earlier this morning, it was announced by Adam Schefter that the Cleveland Browns are hiring Ravens offensive coordinator Todd Monken as their next head coach. Shout out to Monken. Thankful for all he did for Baltimore over his last couple of seasons. Well, Adam Schefter went on to report 4 minutes later that Browns defensive coordinator Jim Schwartz still is under contract to Cleveland, and the team wants him to stay. But that's the thing about Jim Schwartz is about 12 hours ago, hell, even 8 hours ago, pretty much everybody thought he was going to be the next head coach of the Cleveland Browns, including himself. Jordan Schultz goes on to say Schwartz expected to get the head coach job, especially after Udinski dropped out. When he was informed this morning the job was going to Todd Monken, Schwartz said goodbye to a few people and angrily told others he was, quote, done with the Cleveland Browns. Why wouldn't you be? Jordan Schultz goes on to say several players, including Myles Garrett, have a strong affinity for Schwartz. It'll be worth watching how players react to all of this. Schwartz is under contract with the Browns, so he can't just leave. But one source put it, quote, if it has to get ugly, Schwartz is someone who will be perfectly fine making it ugly. What a horrible situation going on in Cleveland right now. I mean, are we surprised that this is happening to the Browns? They cannot do anything right. They can't play football right. They can't hire a head coach right. And look, I like Todd Monken. I think he's going to be a fine head coach. Do I think he's going to save the Cleveland Browns? No, I don't. But this situation is about to get real, real ugly with Jim Schwartz. Steelers, most likely coming down to hire their defensive coordinator today. Nothing officially official yet, but Alan Saunders, a guy who covers the Pittsburgh Steelers, says the Steelers are set to hire Patrick Graham as their next DC. Very well-respected defensive mind around the league. Obviously, they hired Mike McCarthy over the weekend. So for him to be able to get a guy defensively that he trusts as he runs the offense, going to be very important over there in the Steel City. But let's be real. I'm not too scared of Mike McCarthy and Patrick Graham. And the Bengals, they still suck. Not much going on in Cincinnati, okay? That team is kind of like that city. Just kind of exists, okay? Not much happens there except chilling, right? Both in the sense of cold and, of course, the food as well. That's going to do it for today's show. Make sure you guys hit me up on socials, Twitter, Instagram, and make sure you are subscribed to the channel. No matter where I am, no matter where you are, we've got you covered right here on the Baltimore Ravens. Run.